All right, guys, we're back. Episode number 64 of the Daru Strong podcast. We have a brand new set, and also we have a brand new episode, and we're going to do a Q&A session today. So make sure you stay tuned. If you haven't done so already, if you're watching, thank you for subscribing to the Daru Strong podcast channel. If you haven't done so, make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We have to shout out the sponsors before we get into the Q&A section. So, Vivo Barefoot, VIVOBAREFOOT.com. They hook up my entire gym, all my athletes, and myself. It's a minimalistic shoe that helps with full foot functionality, helps strengthen up the intrinsic muscle of the feet. Plus, it's pretty stylish, if I must say. You can go ahead, use my discount code DARUSTRONG at your checkout to get 10% off. VIVOBAREFOOT.com. Make sure you check them out. I highly recommend it. Now, as far as the mentorship, if you guys have been wanting to get involved, if you are a coach or just someone who wants to learn some of the methods of training and business models that I utilize for success in the fitness industry, make sure you check out my mentorship program now. It's a one-time fee and you'll get access for life. You can find it out on my website, DaruStrong.com, for more details, and you get a call with my team to go over all things that you need to know. All right? Now, let's get on to the podcast.
Welcome to the Daru Strong Podcast. Daru Strong Podcast.
Let's go. Mind over matter. Put your mind somewhere else and keep going. That little voice in your head is trying to stop you from getting to where you want to be. Be successful and keep moving forward.
With your host and world-renowned strength and conditioning coach, Phil Daru.
All right, guys, and we're back. A long-awaited time. We've been doing some changes to the podcast room. If you're not seeing this on YouTube, we definitely have a different background. I also changed gyms. We moved the gym over next door, so we have about 5,000 extra square feet of working space. So Daru Strong Gym here in Boca Raton, Florida. So today I'm going to actually go over your questions and do a question and answer for episode number 64. I put out a post on Instagram, and you guys sent me over some of your questions on DM or on the comments. So I'm going to go over them now and also talk a little bit about what we have coming up in the future for the gym and for the brand itself. So here we go. The first question is going to be tips on not being overwhelmed with information. And this has plagued me in the past. I've been a person who've always wanted to learn as much as humanly possible. And I know that it takes a large amount of time for your brain to kind of comprehend what exactly that information is and then utilize it in a deficient or an efficient manner. And for that, the goal really is to make sure you're taking your time, right? So you need to schedule out the times of what you're going to be learning and why are you actually learning it. So the main thing I would do is, first off, get a schedule, get a planner, understand what you want to do on a daily basis, and then pre-program what you're going to be learning at each and every moment. And usually I have blocks of time set aside for my learning processes. So what you're basically going to do is when you wake up, whatever your morning routine is, then from there, if you want to start your day by reading information, whether it be articles, blog posts, a book, whatever, YouTube videos, audiobooks, whatever have you, make sure you set aside at least 30 minutes to an hour to focus on a particular genre or particular industry of what you want to try to learn, whether it be for strength and conditioning, whether it be for health and wellness, whether it be for diet and nutrition, whether it be for finance, whatever it is, right? Set aside your time. And for me, I usually do 30 to an hour blocks of time. And that way I don't, scramble and try to cram everything in all at once, because there is going to be things that you want to learn on a constant basis. And there's going to be multiple things that you need to learn. So the good thing that I have found that works for me really is, again, set aside a time for, your strength and conditioning information. Set aside a time for your, whether it be religious beliefs or whatever you want to do there. And then also set aside a time for, business or marketing or anything there that you feel is important for you to progress as an individual. All right. So, and as far as overthinking when programming, this is a coach obviously asking me this. You want to first and foremost know the athlete, and I've been saying this plenty of times before, and it's going to make sense when you understand exactly what that athlete needs. And sometimes he doesn't need a whole lot, or she doesn't need a whole lot. You know, taking it back to the basics and not trying to do too many things at once. You know, doing triphasic here or conjugate here, or a basic linear block, or doing undulation, and then trying all these methods and all these, you know, modalities of training and throwing everything in the basket. It's very simple to do it when you know exactly what the athlete needs, and then you can pinpoint everything accordingly. So first, find out what the athlete is actually capable of doing by an assessment. Then from there, you want to take what your principles are of training and utilize that into the program itself. So when it comes down to overthinking, as long as you have a set system in place, as long as you know the athlete and you go with what is going to be important for that particular time and the focus points that need to be acquired for that particular person at that particular time, then it'll be a lot less challenging and very simple to do once you understand all those bases. So start from the basics, understand the athlete, schedule appropriately, and then also make sure that you are sticking to your principles, and that's really going to help you out in the long run. All right, number 2 is going to be my pre-operation routine before I had ACL surgery. And immediately after I found out that I actually had an ACL rupture, I started to plan out what I was going to do. And first and foremost, I knew that I had to gain optimal range of motion and mobility in the ankle and hip. I needed to strengthen up my hamstrings, strengthen up my calves, and strengthen up my quads, obviously the surrounding tissue that supports the knee. I also wanted to make sure that I built some hypertrophy there because I knew that I was going to atrophy after surgery. So building up the quads, hamstrings, making sure that I was stable in my movement. So a lot of single leg work, rear foot elevated split squats, front foot elevated split squats. I did that with several different variations, with hinging too as well. So a lot of RDLs, single leg RDLs. Then also worked the intrinsic muscles of the feet. So I'll strengthen up the feet. I also worked on pales and rails contractions for the big toe. So that's an FRC practice. Basically what I was doing was getting into the end range and working isometric contractions to allow for more range to occur. Because the goal really is to make sure that you have that mobility to move efficiently. And you're gonna lose that when you have surgery and have to be down for a while. So I wanted to make sure I was ahead of the curve. So I was being proactive in a sense, right? So the most important thing, again, build hypertrophy of your hamstrings and quads, build up strength in the glutes and the core. So anything in the trunk area, lumbar spine and everything that surrounds that. Also make sure you're mobilizing the ankle and the hip itself. And those are gonna be my main tips. As far as programming goes, I just ran a basic conjugate program, but instead of doing maximal effort work, I did repetition effort in place of maximal effort and did dynamic effort with more speed strength work, less explosive strength because, again, I couldn't do high-level plyometrics or anything like that, but I did work against bands so that I maintained that rate of force development as much as I possibly could because I knew that that was going to go for a little bit once I had surgery. So wanted to at least maintain my speed and power to that degree and also maintain, or if anything, build up some hypertrophy. Now after the surgery, however, I started doing blood flow restriction training to, again, still build muscle and maintain strength and also make sure that I wasn't staying idled, right? So the goal was to get range of motion first and foremost, strengthen up the surrounding tissue, and then start to build some hypertrophy and then build some functionality too as well. So I needed structure first and then function. And that's what I did leading up. Now we're about a year out from surgery, almost a year out. And I've been able to do full triathlon training. Obviously, if you guys been following me on my Instagram and my YouTube. So I'm able to run for 8 or 9 miles at a time, you know, bike somewhere around 30 to 50 miles at a time. And it hasn't even been a year since my surgery. So things are going well, and that's because I had a base of stability and strength and mobility in the surrounding areas of the knee. And then again, the time it took me to recover was lessened because of the fact that I put all these things in place beforehand. So being proactive instead of reactive beforehand definitely put me ahead of the curve. All right. Number 3, how do you program weights when training for a triathlon? So I've done some recent videos in the past, and I still will always be biased towards conjugate training because it works for me. It has been working for me, and it's been working for my athletes, but you can always do a block style approach. You can do undulation, whatever fits you and fits your needs and fits your schedule. For me though, however, I like to utilize either a 2 or 4 day model of condensed conjugate training or just a basic conjugate method. And when I first started, the amount of volume, frequency of training was very high for me, coming from a strength and power background in a sport, whether it be MMA or powerlifting or strongman, right? So the large amount of endurance training was a lot for my body to handle. So in the beginning, I had to take down the amount of weight training that I was doing inside the weight room. So the strength work kind of took a back burner, but again, I still wanted to get at least 2 days in. So that's why I ran the 2-day model of the condensed conjugate. And what that consists of is 1 day, or day 1, would be a dynamic effort upper body, followed by a maximal effort or heavy effort lower body. And then it just switched 72 hours later. The good thing about that is it is concurrent and it is conjugated, so I have constant variation, so we avoid the accommodation there. We also have the ability to bring up all things at once. So that concurrent style there where I'm actually being able to be strong and powerful and bring it up so there's no delineation of strengths. Now that I've been able to build up my fitness and my general physical preparedness, and then also be accustomed to the duration, the time, the overall volume of the triathlon training, I'm able to pick that up now to a 4-day-a-week basic conjugate model. And so what that's going to do is, 1, obviously I'm going to get stronger with that because I'm more frequency of training. 2, it's going to allow me to get more fit. So I'm doing more training sessions throughout the week. Even though it's weight training, I do a lot of things that correlate over into the swim, the bike, and the run. And I use that because that's the sport that I'm getting ready for. So when you're looking at sport specificity, I want to work the muscles and I want to definitely work the movements that will elicit a change in the positive direction to help me get through the race. Now I'm training for an Olympic triathlon, which is the highest you can go before you hit Ironman status. And the reason why I did that is because I'm being very realistic in my approach. Not to say that I won't push myself and this isn't going to be a challenge, which it is, but I do know that it takes a large amount of time to train. And you guys know I do podcasts, I have a YouTube channel, I coach nonstop, I have multiple businesses that I have to run. And I'm a father and a husband with a full family. So I have to make sure that the training isn't gonna get in the way of that. So before I go ahead and do a full-on Ironman where it's gonna cost a huge amount of time to train, on top of the weight training, on top of all the skills training, and then running all the things that I have to do to make money and to coach other individuals, I have to make sure that I'm able to do it on a smaller scale, and then I can bring it up once I have everything aligned. So with that being said, that's the weight training as we go on now. If you guys want to find out more details on the condensed conjugate model and on conjugate itself, I highly recommend Westside Book of Methods by Louis Simmons, or you can check out my mentorship program where we go into all details with that particular method of training that I've been able to correlate over the years. So mentorship, links in the description somewhere, or you can find it on my website, DARUSTRONG.com. And question number 5, best cardio workout for MMA or grappling. And when you're talking about cardio, I'm understanding what he's trying to say here is basically, how can I get a better gas tank for MMA or grappling? And with cardiovascular training, whether it be for aerobic capacity, whether it be for cardiac output, so on and so forth, there's several different energy systems that go with a combat sport. And that really is dependent upon the type of sport it is, the type of duration, and the type of athlete you have. And I could break that down and have a whole seminar based on that. But the general consensus is going to be aerobic power fast switch capacity training, anaerobic and alactic power and capacity is what you're going to be aiming for when you're talking about energy systems for combat sports. So my go-tos for these particular energy systems of training, or whether you want to call it modalities of training, the aerobic power is primarily going to put you at a higher level of your VO2 max, or your highest level of aerobic energy that you can put out. And so for that, I like to do assault bike intervals. I also like to do, sparring is primarily where you're going to be at in those particular places too as well, especially if you have an athlete that is very elite and is efficient. They're going to get up to those higher levels of their VO2 max, but they won't go too far into the threshold zones, or they won't go too far into lactic, because they know how to efficiently move, they know how to pace themselves. And so for that, it's a good way to work on your aerobic power through those time frames. And again, when you're talking about aerobic power, you want to make sure that everything that you do stays somewhat in that range of your VO2 max, okay? So assault bike intervals and sparring for those particular energy systems training. Fast twitch capacity training. Now that's basically building up mitochondria in the fast twitch fibers, and that's building up the aerobic capacity in the fast twitch fibers, or the bigger fibers, right? So I do like to do some type of sled marching or belt squat grappling. So basically you get into a belt squat and you're gonna be doing some type of grappling exchange while you are in the belt squat. So you got constant tension on your hips and on your legs, but you're also, basically pummeling and fighting for underhooks with your partner. If you can't do that, or you don't have the means to a belt squat, I obviously like to work a lot with the sleds. So sled dragging with a partner, again, grappling, fighting for underhooks, so on and so forth there too as well. All right, so for anaerobic, alactic power and capacity, prowler sprints are always good because it's not difficult to do. It's simple to set up. The athlete doesn't have to think so much, and they can produce a large amount of output and a large amount of intensity and effort into a straight sprint with the prowler. And depending on if you're going to go for power or capacity is dependent upon your rest period. So an incomplete rest is going to be more towards capacity. A full rest is going to give you more power, right? And you can work your anaerobic or your alactic power work with your, whether it be Olympic lifting or whether it be just a speed strength with bands, accommodated resistance. So for the goal, when it comes down to increasing this, I like to utilize prowlers, heavy bag training, speed strength work, so that's bands, accommodated resistance, so we like to do dynamic effort with that. And you're gonna do that with a shorter rest period for capacity training and a little bit longer rest period for power training, all right? And again, I have other videos on my YouTube channel that can go over more detail and kind of show you guys exactly how we do it on my YouTube channel. So check it out, Phil Daru Strong. You can go ahead and search it. All right, number 6. What are my thoughts on red light therapy, and also what are my go-to, companies that I think that have the best quality? So I would say, based upon the research, you want to have red light and near infrared light combination. So you want a 50-50 blend, right? So that's going to help with cellular respiration. That's going to help your recovery, your CNS. It's going to help with mitochondrial biogenesis. You want the red light at 660 nanometers, and you want the near infrared light at 850 nanometers plus. And that's basically going to penetrate deeper into the muscle for muscle recovery and to reduce joint pain. All right. So for a recommendation on the company that I like, that we're actually going to start utilizing here at the gym, and I'm actually going to be putting in a full recovery center next door, is the Joovv recovery, or the Joovv light, and that's JOOVV. So if you guys check that out, you can go to joovv.com and check out what they have there. But they have that 50-50 blend, and they come in panels. So we have 6 panels that we're going to utilize. And then on top of that, we're going to use what's called Soleus. And that's primarily UVB light, So that's obviously less in nanometers. So you're looking right around 293 to 303 nanometers. And what the benefit of that is that's going to help with vitamin D. It's going to give you all the benefits of sunlight without the harmful radiation, right? Without the UVR or the UV light, right? So it's taking away, you're looking at around 711% more vitamin D3 than sunlight alone, with 99% less UVR exposure. So again, when you're talking about like cancerous cells and things like that, you can still get the benefits of sunlight without the harmful radiation, without the harmfulness of what sun will do to you. So we actually throw the soleus on, and we're gonna go ahead and do soleus for the beginning and then ramp them up into that red light and infrared light therapy. So you're getting all the benefits there of natural sunlight. Like I said, you'll be able to fully recover. So I do recommend you check out soleus, and that is, let me look at the website. Yep, that's solius.com. And again, there's only, I believe there's only 2 in the world right now, or at least in the US, and we're about to have the third one. So looking pretty good. We're gonna have that here in the gym. So if you guys are ever in the South Florida area in Boca Raton, come check me out. All right. This one is from one of my guys in the mentorship, but any strengthening exercises for injury of the shoulder from basically hitting the bag over time. So this is a common injury. It's called, basically like puncher's shoulder or something like that. But when it comes to injuries of the shoulder, it really depends on where you're throwing the punch and how you're throwing the punch. So technique does play a big role in that. So make sure that you're strengthening up the surrounding tissue, you're strengthening up and stabilizing the shoulder in general. And also you want to mobilize the T-spine. Also helping with that is going to strengthen up the end range of your punch. So doing isometric contractions at the end range of your hooks and of your jabs and your overhands is definitely going to enhance that. So when you're talking about exercises, you can do things like suitcase carries. You can do things like waiter's carries or bottoms up kettlebell carries. You can also do things like kettlebell arm bars and just basic plank positions. Also, I like scapular push-ups and scapular pull-ups, right? To get that range of motion and have that scapula work through the rib cage appropriately. So primarily what you want to work on beforehand is, one, we need to see how severe the injury is. And that's going to be determined by a qualified physical therapist, a clinician, an orthopedic surgeon, something like that, orthopedic, who is going to tell you, okay, are you going to be able to actually train? Or are you going to have to do physical therapy? Or are you just going to have to rest it? Or you're going to need surgery. And once that happens, then you can find out exactly what's the proper protocol to get you back into full go. And again, if you need surgery, then there's other procedures for that. If you don't need surgery and you just need to strengthen up the surrounding tissue, I highly recommend doing those exercises. And that's basically what you're going to probably be doing, along with soft tissue work, maybe some dry needling, some cupping, things of that nature inside your physical therapy. Once you start to move and mobilize the joint, then you can start to enhance the stability and the strength. And then you can start to move it in more of that dynamic fashion. So I do really highly recommend isokinetic movements, right? Constant tension. So swimming, right? Overhead stuff like that, as long as there's no pain, as long as you're cleared for it, you definitely want to work into that and then start to work higher dynamic movements. And then eventually you can start doing, your punching and your throwing of med balls and things like that. But first you have to start off with isometrics. You have to gain the optimal range of motion, active end range of control. Isometrics for strengthening, then start to build up some hypertrophy, then start to build up faster dynamic movements. Then you can start to go into your sport-specific training again. Now this may take a expanded amount of time depending on you. Could take 4 weeks. It could take 4 months. It really just depends on how you take to the particular protocols and how you progress accordingly. All right. So again, I'm not a doctor. I don't ever plan to be a doctor because I don't want to be called Dr. Phil. So what I will say is this: get with a qualified a physical therapist, a physician, something like that can tell you exactly what's going on there. And when you do know, and they give you the go-ahead to start strengthening it up, do those exercises there. All right, so last question is on tactical population and strength training. And tactical population meaning firefighters, police officers, military, things of that nature. And so with those individuals, they have to be ready at all times, right? They have to be capable of doing high intense movements, athletic movements, being strong, being conditioned, having power. So you have to bring these things all up at once, and you have to continuously bring them up throughout the entire year because there is no seasons with the tactical population, those tactical athletes. So conjugate would be my way to go. And you're going to be working the 3 methods of training, right? So that's going to be maximal effort, repetition effort, and also dynamic effort. And those methods of training are going to allow them to do their job effectively no matter what situation occurs. So I would work on our basic 4-day-a-week model. The goal, depending on the athlete, is going to be based upon their particular weak points. So if you do have, let's say, a firefighter that really hasn't been training at all, right? Just primarily maybe only been running or, does more endurance work. Well, we have to obviously get them stronger because they have to have the ability to pick an individual up out of a burning building, right? They have to have the work capacity to be able to do that, plus make sure that nobody else is getting injured around the area. Plus they have to take out the fire. So with that being said, they have to do a large amount of things. Same thing with police, same thing with the military. And nowadays, if you look at, there's a couple of guys that work with the military now, and Matt Winning is one that comes to mind. He works with the military population, or he has, and he was stating in recent studies that a large amount of them do not have to run anymore for longer distances. And now it's more short bursts or sprints throughout wherever they are stationed. And they have to be able to repeat that over time. So getting them stronger is going to set that baseline of capacity, is going to set the baseline of general physical preparedness. So he had to work on maximal effort with a lot of his guys and a lot of repetition effort to give them the muscle or quote unquote body armor to allow for them not to get injured and to allow for them to move with their packs on and move with all the gear that they have to have on in a efficient manner without getting gassed out, especially in the hot sun. Okay? Police and fire are the same, it's the same concept. You definitely want them to be mobile. You definitely want them to have speed. You want them to be powerful, but they also have to have a baseline of strength because that's going to be your defining factor. On top of that, yes, they do need to have a great gas tank. They need to have good endurance. They need to have good endurance for sustainability, right? For that ability to, again, keep going each and every day. Now, does it have to be like an endurance sport athlete? No. But you definitely need to bring up their cardiovascular endurance. You have to bring up their aerobic power, like we talked about in the other question. But again, bringing up their strength by doing maximal effort and repetition effort and heavy efforts are definitely going to enhance the quality of them doing their job appropriately. So make sure that you are programming that. And then again, you want to constantly vary because they're going to go through a large amount of variation in their workspace, right? They may have to do one thing over here and then totally switch it up over here. And so for that, they need to be ready at all times for all different aspects of the workspace or of whatever calls upon them to do. So what I would say is switch the bars, switch the movements, switch the tension gradients to allow them to get strong in all these different movements and planes of motion so that they're ready and capable of any situation in the field of work. All right, guys, so there you have it. Those are the questions. If you want me to do more Q&A, let me know. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's Daru Strong Podcast. You can look at our brand new podcast booth here at the gym. And if you want to learn more about my training and about my methods, go ahead and check out my mentorship program. The course is a one-time fee and you'll get access for life. Also talk about business on top of strength and conditioning protocols and methods of training like I do with all my athletes here. And also, if you are going to be in the South Florida area or plan to be at the end of the year, December 11th through the 12th, I'm having my very first Daru Strong Coaching, Performance, and Fitness Business Summit. So I'm bringing in the who's who in the strength and fitness world. So I'm not going to tell you who I have, but just trust me on this. I'm bringing some heavy hitters here. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. If you want to find out more details, go to darustrong.com and you can check it out there. If you need to find out more to get your ticket, make sure that you get it fast because things are going fast and we only have a set amount of space left. So make sure you go ahead and do that for the December 11th and 12th conference. All right, there we go. And I will see you guys next time, episode number 64, and I'm out.